much. This is our June 30th, 2025, 3 o'clock work session. If you would please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Alrighty. Doesn't look like Reverend Brewer is with us, so hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to call Amy up for our How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. So the first agenda item is the treasurer's report as of June 26th. Most of the expenses have been entered.
Okay, I'll come back to them. For some reason they're not on mine. Sorry about that. Thank you, Squire Wisman. Go ahead, Amy.
Most of the expenses have been entered, but we still have revenues coming in. So these are not final numbers. I'll have your final numbers at our next meeting.
And so, Amy, before I ask anybody if they have questions, so your first, the first court meeting, you'll have everything reconciled.
I will.
We'll feel better about the exact numbers by then.
Exact.
All right, thank you very much. All right, any questions on the treasurer's report for Amy? All righty, go ahead and move on next agenda item, please.
This is the second reading for amendment number 4. And it has been approved by the Department of Local Government. And so I'm bringing it before you for the second reading.
So Amy, just to make sure we're all on the same page, we didn't make any changes, correct, in between
No changes.
first and second reading? It's the
No.
same one that we read the first time?
It
Okay.
is.
Any questions for Amy on this agenda item? Go ahead, Squire Wisman.
At the first reading, I asked for clarification about the PDI grant, the $68,000, what the so-called due diligence was for. Do we have any clarification, or did we get any clarification?
Yes, I did. I asked about that, and here's the response. It's for geotechnical report, Phase 1 environmental survey, title search, survey, and preliminary master plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Amy on the second reading? Alrighty, next.
And the next item are budget transfers. These are our final budget transfers for all of our accounts to get them in line, and it's just movement between one line item to another. It's rather lengthy.
Any questions for Amy on the budget transfers? Alrighty, seeing none, we'll go ahead to the cash transfers.
And my final agenda item are cash transfers. I do a cash transfer quarterly. This is our final cash transfer. I do have a change. The first line item from general fund cash, change that from 2.3 million to the new number is 2,036,287. And then go down to the sheriff fund cash. Instead of 510,000, the new number is 245,000. The sheriff brought in a sizable deposit for us today, so I was able to decrease that.
Amy, if you don't mind, if you could email those changes to Squire Sebastian, just so she has those.
Certainly.
That'd be helpful.
Amy, could you elaborate? There's a $1 million transfer from clerk's cash to general fund cash.
That has accumulated over the years. Excess fees has been higher than what was budgeted, so I'm just moving that over to the general fund this year.
Any other questions for Amy on this agenda item? All righty, thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to go back to the minutes. Anybody have any questions, concerns, comments on the minutes from our June 24th, 2025 meeting?
Judge, there was one thing, and it sort of fell out of sequence of things, so I'm not sure where we could add, but between the discussions on the zone change items, we had some discussion about asking our planning director to bring us some clarification, maybe in the scope of the entire planning code about rural, residential, and agricultural. And we sort of got a little explanation of that, but I wanted a little bit more lengthy explanation about why we seem to see so many of those type of transfers. And in tandem with that, we asked formally, and I didn't hear any opposition, to have some definitions put in place, particularly about the agricultural district, defining that agricultural product that we've talked about several times, as well as some of the other current applicable or allowed uses in that zone for us to consider before, as a body, before this rewrite starts, because I think we're all going to have some input. In that discussion, we had some input about wanting that. So I just wanted to make sure the record had that we had that discussion and that we gave that directive to our planning staff to bring that back to us. But it's not reflected in here, so.
Okay.
Hey, Judge,
Yes.
can we go back and review the, before we do any of those things, can we go back and review the meeting just so that we get that, so it's accurately reflected rather than we're kind of going off of a recollection here? Because I think we all want to be sure we know what it is we're going to put in there.
Yeah.
Because that's an official record.
Yeah, no, I agree.
In a work session is not that, but when we vote on something, that's what we do in there. So let's, so that we have that moving forward, to share with the general public.
So Max, how do I go about doing that? If we're gonna go back and watch it, can I table these minutes that have to be voted today?
That'd be voted on at the next meeting. By statute. I don't think that was. I think the issue is going to be, while there may have been a discussion, I don't think there was any action on that item.
Right,
And
so
because we got off topic.
like I said, so there was no action actually taken on that particular item. And I know we've had this discussion several times before on what should be reflected in the minutes and what should not be reflected in the minutes. But if you look at the statute, it talks about action taken by the body. And so I don't think there was a vote one way or the other regarding this particular issue.
Okay, Squire Blackburn.
Yeah, I agree with both sides of that. I think in theory, you want it known that we're asking for something to happen. And I totally agree with that. But as that rewrite comes along, I think we need to include that in some of our court meetings so we can define some of those terms and things like that with the staff through research and what they find out. But I'm with Squire Westman on, we need to have that in our future meetings, either in the beginning, middle, but probably not in the end of those discussions.
Right. So we could potentially talk to our planning staff and have them present something as an agenda item.
So if you want to make a motion that we do that, like do it in other business.
Oh, we can go, I can go ahead and talk to them about it. I don't think we need official.
This has sort of been kind of my argument for months and months and months now about, the work session. This was part of a directive that we had a discussion and we've had a mutual agreement upon. And in my mind, it should have been noted in our work session so that there's a directive that we gave, or one of us gave to our staff to bring something back to us, but it's not reflected.
Yeah, but I don't think the court has the authority to direct staff. I mean, that's a day-to-day operation. I mean, I'm fine to talk to her and have it done.
Well, I have no issue with anything what people have said, but I think that we have to approve set of minutes, or our meeting's not official until we do that. So we gotta approve something today, I think.
Yeah, and
So
that's,
the other thing is, which I disagree, that as, when we're sitting here as a body, we do have authority to do things.
yeah, as a body, but what he was talking about was one person. I
So
don't
if
think
we make
all
a
took
motion for
vote.
them to come here next week under other business,
Yeah.
or whatever week we pick,
Yeah,
they'd have
Right.
to do it.
I'm just talking about what happened in the last meeting. Go ahead, Squire.
So I'm thinking, just to rectify all that, when we do get to the end of it and we get to other business, Squire Westman wants to make a motion to include some discussion on the rewrite of
Yeah.
the zoning ordinances.
Perfect.
Then we'll have it in the minutes.
And we do like we usually do, and I look around,
Yeah.
so we have the majority, and that's what we do.
we
Exactly.
can-
I was just, and I didn't mean anything disrespectful. I was just saying what happened in that last meeting. You know, one person just saying, hey, let's do this. We never really did it as a group, is what I was getting at. But per Max, I mean, the minutes are what actions we took place, so these are correct then. Okay. Alrighty, we'll go to now, payment of claims. Does anybody have any questions for Kim on payment of claims?
So just one thing, on the back of our recurring expenses, we have the first quarter of the Save the Grant payment. I would imagine that that should have came a couple months ago, and we should have a second quarter payment before the end of this budget year, but
I'm gonna let Amy talk on that one, because she deals with the grant on that. Go ahead, Amy.
So this was for the first quarter of the year ending March 31st. This was a late payment that I wanted to go ahead, it was one payment that I wanted to go ahead and get to the grant.
perfect. So that's what I was wondering.
Thank you. Any other questions on claims? All right, seeing none, we'll go into other business. So Squire Wishman, would you like to go first?
Yeah, Judge, like we've discussed several times, and something else I'll bring up too, that we gave a directive some months ago, generally about planning and zoning issues. So the first being, I'd like some clarification to the court in terms of the number of applications that have come through for zoning issues that are changing a rural residential to a agricultural purpose, because in my mind, it seems a bit backwards that we're going from something that's supposed to be only an agricultural vacant land use to a use that talks about having sewers and capacity and, you know,
Okay.
agricultural or residential uses, but we're going sort of a backwards trend, and I'm just wondering why that's occurring so much and how we can get out ahead of it. And partner with that, I would like to have some information brought to us to further define what the agricultural district currently is, and this court did give a directive, I think, 2 years ago to ask for somehow that agricultural product to be defined and brought to us, so we could look that over and move forward with our own definition if need be. I remember the discussion, if the state doesn't define it, could we define it through our own processes within the zoning code? And then on top of that, I think we had some discussion at least about reviving our stormwater task force back about a year ago, or no, maybe 6 months ago or so. And I understand the staff is going to a stormwater conference next week that I'd like to see us, pony on the back of that to take a more active role, especially in light of the federal funding that we're not going to be getting to complete some stormwater mitigation issues. And after this flooding, I think it's important that we start tackling that really head on. So those three items have kind of been circling my head. If you want to, I'd like.
So if it's
Howard
okay,
to make a
let's
motion.
talk about all three of these individually, just so we keep them all. So the first request would be kind of know the number of applicants that are going from RR to AG and kind of see what the trend is and maybe, in their professional opinion, why. Is everybody okay with that? I'm just going to kind of look.
And I'll
Go
just add, I know a lot of it, there's so many conditional uses
Yeah.
in the ag jurisdiction, and that's one of the things, when we were doing the comprehensive update, that's why I wanted to do a rewrite of the whole
Yeah.
entire zoning ordinances. So I think we're gonna have some discussions. I think staff should probably tell us when they wanna have them,
Yeah,
but.
they can get that together. But majority of court's good with directing that, right?
I am.
Okay, I see enough nods. All right.
What
That's
is the time period that that you all are looking for on that?
Well, we'll have to ask staff. I don't wanna, do we have to put a time?
Well, I mean, I'm just,
I mean,
if
I
they're
was
gonna start
hoping,
digging, I
I'm
mean,
hoping the next month.
but I'm saying, as far as the time period, are you talking about the last 6 months, the last 12 months?
Oh, I see
The
what you're
last 2 years?
For the
last
record,
3
Oh,
years?
you're saying, yeah, to look at the numbers, I'd say for last year, is that fair?
no, I was kind of wanting to look at a longer term trend, you know, maybe the last 5 years, maybe even more, depending on the pattern that seems to be occurring with that. And I think Autumn gave us in that discussion some indication about why that, you know, during the comp planning process 20 years ago, everything was just made RR.
Yeah.
So that they're fixed some of that in the modern code, but maybe there's some nuance that we need to understand.
We'll put in,
So-
if it's all right, the last 5 years, and if for some reason she doesn't have the information, then
Or
they
if she
can-
wants to look at 10, and fine, if that makes more sense.
Yeah, I don't wanna bury them too much, as busy as they are, so let's see what they can get to without getting too crazy. Okay, the next, so we have, I'm making sure Sherry's not saying anything. Further defined agricultural products, like through their zoning. So, Max, I'm gonna lean on you a little bit, because I know in the last court, that was a big deal. And they talked about going to the Attorney General, trying to kind of define what agriculture was. What are your thoughts on defining that, since, like, is that out of your office? Is that out of, you know, I mean, there's so many different ways that could be looked at, like who's,
My thought was, since there's a code rewrite and we are retaining experts in the area of planning and zoning to work with that individual in order to develop that definition. That was my thought process when I found out that we were doing a code rewrite. It only makes sense for a professional in that area, me working with them to try to get that definition, working with the court.
okay, what are thoughts from the court on that?
Well,
Go ahead, Squire Tanner.
I think, to not beat around the bush, is alcohol an agricultural product, period.
Yeah.
If feed is, if mash is, if flowers are, then what's wrong with alcohol not being an agricultural product?
Yeah.
Which is a big question and might be in court now. Seems like I've heard that floated around before.
I would imagine it probably is.
And I would actually like to hear that answer myself, because it might change a lot of attitudes about things if alcohol is an agricultural product and it's made out of corn, barley, and wheat, rye, period.
Yeah.
And it apparent to me like that's a value-added product,
Squire Harris.
no more than jelly or jam is.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
So is, what we're using, does that come directly down by the state? Does the county direct what can be or cannot be? I mean, where does it start for us to get a lead on where it's going? Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I mean,
Look
this is,
for a precedent.
Where does it come from?
yeah, I mean,
We
this,
gotta look for a precedent somewhere, and we've got to
And that's,
see how that applies to
and I
our.
think ultimately everyone's going like that because no one
Yeah.
wants to.
But that's my
to
thing, is
answer
it something that
question.
we came up with and said this is what this means, or something the
No,
state
I
came
think
up
it's the
with?
state. I think it's the state.
well, that's really my question, what I'm getting to is who can define that? Can we,
Yeah.
through the zoning process, define what agricultural uses we want in
For our own
agricultural
county.
lands for our county? And if we can, then, you know, we need to put some thought into what that looks like as a
Yeah.
court. If we cannot, if it's already defined by Department of Ag or federal government somehow, what are our limitations? And if there's, much like I think we had a discussion, I'll say to what exotic animals are, right? And that linked back on federal and state precedent to define those. What can we do in terms of the agricultural district? And you didn't get quite all of it there, Judge, but I was really wanting to define to all of us what our current permitted agricultural uses are, so that we can have a discussion as a court if we'd like to make a directive to the Planning Commission or this code rewrite process about what we don't want within our agricultural uses.
Yeah.
You know, as
And
part
we
of
can
that
get that. I can
rewrite,
have
so-
staff send that to you. There's a
Because
list.
you also have KRS 100-111, which does provide the definition of agricultural use. So if you're talking about planning and zoning, you're going to have to be cognizant of the definition that's provided in that statute, which defines what agricultural use is.
So that is directed by the state, and then we
can-
that's my
By statute.
question.
Not necessarily,
It's a lot.
not
Yeah.
necessarily.
But let me, just for my clarification, Max, so, but can we
This is mine.
tweak that legally because it's our county?
what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, you had asked that, Squire Westman. I'm just asking, like, if we interpret it a different way, can we go against what the state says? Like, I'm treading on thin ice there, but.
If they've left it, excuse me,
It's
it's probably a debatable issue to me.
You can make it somewhat more restrictive, but it is that really the desire of this body to be absolutely more restrictive than the statute allows for an agricultural use? I mean, and that's your all's choice if that's the way you all want to go. If you're saying, we don't like soybeans, but we like corn, so you can only grow corn and you can't grow soybeans, even though the statute says corn and soybeans are an agricultural use. So that's what I'm saying is when you start taking these definitions that are in planning and zoning and you say, I only want to do the, aquaponics for, we don't want tilapia because they are invasive and we only want native Kentucky's.
Okay,
And that's as far as I'll go down that route.
I don't want to take up, we're getting this probably out of order, but
Yeah.
because we're talking about a lot of things that's not in this budget. However, if you get into what is an agricultural product, what is not, the future's gonna be talking about marijuana and everything else that comes from it, and those are agricultural products, then in my opinion, if you got a bar of strawberry jam, it's no different than a bottle of alcohol. To me, it's an agricultural product
That's what we're asking.
derived of things that are grown on the farm. So, but we're here to talk about the point of order, Judge.
Well, we're in other business, so we're just floating around. Squire Blackburn.
I think for my edification, I don't know that I want to restrict any kind of agricultural product, but we have a lot of conditional uses. And when folks come into the community and they want to buy property, navigating the zoning designations and the conditional uses and all that stuff can be a little complicated. So I think in that, we just want to, I know the staff is going to do the rewrite, but I would like to see, as well as I think Squire Wissman would, as the court would, that process and if we've got an idea that can help, great. If we don't, we don't. But I just want us to be involved in that process.
Okay, so on that thing, so we're gonna leave this up to the rewrite, and I think we all need to be involved in that. And I think we have the opportunity to do that during the rewrite.
Well, Judge, I don't know how we get to an answer, but two examples, if I may. If we have an aquaculture hydroponic kind of production in this community, right? But an Asian carp is a terribly invasive species that is effectively been outlawed across this nation, but hasn't been officially in this county. But we might put something restrictive in place for something like that, or a nursery that decides to grow only Bradford pear trees.
I agree.
I think we do have the ability to restrict some things that we deem as a court detrimental in this community, and I want to know how we do that in that process. Okay. And the other part of that is, I would imagine agricultural products, as we want to define them, is only a rough stock, grown element prior to refinement, distillation, processing otherwise. And I really want to know if that is a definition we can apply or not. I don't know where that lies, and I would like to be able to understand if we can make a distinction in that classification better. So.
All right, and then the last one is the revive the stormwater task force. You all good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're, okay. Okay, any other business before we go to voting session?
Just one thing, Judge, if I could. I wanted to ask, we have a lot of contracts with the city, and we've talked about revisiting some of those things, and there's some of those agreements that have meetings that are supposed to take place that my understanding have not happened, and since this court took place anyway. So I'm wondering how we could go about a sort of end-of-year review as a court. I'd like to have a copy of every contract or agreement that we have with the city. And if anything has been revised or, altered in the last 3 years that we've been here, I don't think that anything has been. So I'm just wanting to put eyes on all those contracts and agreements. And, we've had some discussion about some of that is going to impact budgeting in the future. And
4 or 5?
Madison County just put up.
5 to 10 maybe, I'm not for sure.
Okay.
There's the 911 fee, right? There's automatic aid, there's
Okay.
ambulance service, fire has an agreement. Just want to put eyes on all those because they've come up multiple times in our discussions and our budgeting and any elements of billing that we've received from the city, either on time or late, and I think it's time we review those.
Does everybody want copies of those?
I think if you give one, give it to all.
Okay, perfect. All ready?
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. All righty, we got any more other business before we go to voting? All righty, clerk, please call roll.
Square Sebastian.
So Kim, I can't hear you at all.
Sorry, Squire Sebastian,
Here.
Squire Blackburn,
Present?
Squire Dykus.
Here.
Squire Tanner. Squire Harrod, sorry. Squire Tanner.
Here.
Squire Westman.
Present.
Judge Mueller.
Present, thank you, clerk. Authorization for approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of June 24th, 2025.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes.
I'm gonna have to vote nay, Judge, just for the reasons I stated.
Okay. Did you get that, clerk?
Yes.
All righty. Authorization to receive treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Second reading and approval of amendment number 4 to ordinance number 4-2024 relating to the budget for fiscal year 2024-2025.
So moved. Second.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve budget transfers for fiscal year 2024-2025.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve cash transfers for the fiscal year 2024-2025.
So moved.
So
Second.
moved.
Did you get that, clerk?
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Who was the,
Aye.
aye, but who was the second judge? We had two first.
Kim, who was second?
I'll second. Just
I had Dykus and Sebastian.
Yeah.
Okay. Payment of claims. Is there a motion to deny payment of any claim? No motion was made. Let the record reflect claims are to be paid. Authorization to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.